Well, my name is Cindy Lair, and I have been working for the Colorado Department of Agriculture for 15 years this month. I manage the Colorado State Conservation Board, and that is an organization, it's a governing board that helps the state of Colorado assist the 76 conservation districts in the state of Colorado. They fall under the state statutes, and we offer them a certain amount of funding, not a lot, and also quite a bit of administrative assistance so that they can meet their statutory requirements and also build capacity to help their landowners within their district implement conservation activities on their land. Luckily, I have a really excellent team of professional staff that are out there working directly with the conservation districts and helping answer their questions every day and manage their grants. And so it gives me a lot of time in my position to be able to work on some of the special issues that come up in the conservation arena, such as water quality, water quantity, soil health, conservation easements, a lot of different things that could come up that really are important to the agricultural producers and their ability to make a living and keep ag economies moving in Colorado. And a lot of that does depend on having our conservation practices in place and abilities to plan into the future, not just for today's crop, but a crop 10 years from now, 30 years from now, and that next generation of producers as well.
That's awesome. How did you find your position or get into the position you are now?
Well, I was working for the city of Louisville, managing their land department, and I learned that the conservation districts, the state conservation board needed a manager, that my predecessor had retired, and I had experience working with other conservation districts and thought, wow, this would be awesome. This would be a um, fun career path to go down, helping voluntary incentive-based conservation and the partnership between the conservation districts, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, landowners, and the state. To me, that is very exciting to work with those entities and see how we can leverage what we have available in resources and try to make the land better than how we found it. There are so many wonderful things happening in soil health locally throughout the state of Colorado. And you can ask me, are those programs dependent on the Department of Agriculture having a soil health program? And I would say, thankfully, no, they're able to go on their own. The last thing we want to do is be out there dictating what these local efforts do. We want to do what we can at the state level to help promote those efforts. We're not here to tell anybody how to farm, and we're not here to tell soil health programs locally how they should run their programs. Yeah, so anyway, we're at a stage right now where we are about to start the process to organize an advisory committee. And we are also going to be applying for more grants that will help us to be able to bring more funding through USDA, namely NRCS, to the local level. And also, I would be really remiss if I didn't acknowledge the wonderful work that's been done by the Colorado Collaborative for Healthy Soils. It's an organization that is made up of dozens of agricultural groups, and as well as conservation districts and individual farmers that are interested in soil health. I think they have about 250 people on their mailing list all these people come together to help provide input and suggestions, also cautions on what we shouldn't be doing, and trying to help provide that information to make sure that the program that the Department of Agriculture starts is going to meet the needs for what the farmers want on the ground.
How did that organization start?
Well, the CCHS is what we call it, and it started with there was a county commissioner and somebody from CSU, somebody from the Colorado State Conservation Board, Clint Evans with the NRCS, and just a real small focus group. And they were talking about how they can strengthen soil health programming in the state of Colorado, and they brought me into that conversation, and then a few more people came in along with that, including Amber Weber. This program started, and Mad Agriculture is a nonprofit group that works out of Boulder County, and they work on helping farmers improve their viability and their new techniques on the ground. They said they wanted to help host it, and has been a really nice partnership over the last year. And that's about how long this group has been in place. They even have quite a few subcommittees that help focus in on the policy side, the science side, the funding side, stakeholder input side. And so they're not just talking about it, but they're really doing a great deal of planning and providing people in the state with ability to input on what we should and shouldn't do, and ways that we can make it work the best for ag production.
Can you kind of speak to why you believe that that group is so important and where you think that group is headed next?
It's hard to say at this point how long it will run. Once we have a functioning soil health program at the Department of Agriculture, there may be other ways that the CCHS can transition and continue to provide some guidance for us, and they may even be a nonprofit entity that could apply for grants alongside what the Department of Agriculture is doing. It all remains to be seen. I've never worked with such a positive group of people. It seems like everybody coming together with one goal in mind of improving our soils, improving resilience. It's been a really remarkable process to participate with this group, and I know that the Department of Agriculture really appreciates what they've done, because it's helped us plug directly into the voices for a lot of producers and a lot of producer groups.
Wow, I just can't believe how many different groups you work with. And I think that's such a valuable role to be a connector for all of these groups. I know you partner often with the Lower Arkansas Valley Water Conservancy District. Can you describe what that partnership and what the work you've done for them looks like?
We have been working with the Lower Arkansas Valley Water Conservancy District on water quality projects for, gosh, I think it might be 3 or 4 years now. And there was an older watershed plan that really was quite large, and it didn't quite focus in on some of the areas that really needed the focus at the time. And we collectively recognized that we needed more of a plan that would address the needs of the lower Arkansas, specifically from John Martin Reservoir to the state line. There have been a lot of discussions with the Arkansas River Compact Administration, ARCA, and that mainly focuses on water quantity. And there's been a lot of discussion about the quality of water that goes into Kansas. And so the state of Colorado and I know the Lower Arkansas Valley Water Conservancy District has been concerned about the state of that water going into Kansas, and trying to do what we can to reduce the non-point source pollution. We identified a really great location on the Fort Lyon that, I should say the Fort Lyon Canal, that had been predominantly flood irrigated for all these years. And we felt like that might be a great pilot area to start helping farmers convert to sprinkler irrigation and reduce the amount of deep percolation, and so that we wouldn't have quite as much runoff from those fields, and we'd be able to reduce the amount of nitrogen and selenium, as well as even uranium that would be going into the groundwater, or into the river, I should say. And it's been a very positive project that we worked on together. I really have to give credit to the Lower Arkansas Valley Water Conservancy District and Colorado State University, and some other real key players that helped make this a reality. It's hard for a lot of people in the ag sector to feel like they can trust different environmental health organizations, and there is that fear of being regulated. And from the perspective of the Department of Agriculture, we're here to keep farmers in business, and we do regulate in a lot of different ways. We regulate the industry, but it feels different when it comes to the producers, and having the Department of Ag be able to collaborate and do agreements with the Lower Arkansas Valley Water Conservancy District helps build that trust. And definitely, the Lower Ark and the Department of Ag aren't trying to get any producers into something that's going to backfire on them. In fact, we're trying to help show that the best way to manage non-point source pollution is through voluntary, incentive-based, non-regulatory means. And when we get to the end of these projects and we can show over time, because non-point source pollution does take a lot of time to be able to show results. It isn't something that just can be tested and see the difference overnight. It can sometimes take decades, but over time, and through excellent baseline measurements that Mike's crew have been taking, we're fully expecting to see the pilot project that we're talking about, as well as other projects that the Lower Ark is working on with the Water Quality Control Division. We're expecting to see some reductions in the nutrients that are going into the river because of the activities and the voluntary work the farmers have been doing. And that's what, at the end of my career and any of our careers, that's the best thing that we could hope for, is continuing down that path of helping farmers help their own bottom line and productivity, while at the same time they're also helping water quality. And that's why I think it's not a hard sell, because most of the things that we're trying to get people to implement are actually not only good for water quality, but it's great. They're good for their production and bottom line too, and so their own net profitability. So that's why I think it's kind of not a hard sell.
I was actually going to ask you that. What do you think the biggest hurdle producers do have to jump over when it comes to thinking about transforming their production to these soil health practices?
As we've been talking about soil health, and I think with water quality, they go hand in hand. I think the hardest part is the uncertainty. There's financial uncertainty as well as just agricultural uncertainty. And with markets being what they are, with trade being what it is, a lot of producers aren't in a position where they feel comfortable making a lot of changes on their to their cropping program, and that causes problems. And also, let's be real. Let's face it. When you start planting cover crops, by nature, they aren't something that you harvest. You're not going to make a profit off of it. And it costs money to plant them, and it costs money for the seed. And that comes out of the farmer's pocketbook. So we're looking at their net profitability going down for a while. And that's why CSU works hard on finding ways to tie that together through the grazing, and finding ways to help farmers be able to make up for the reduction in yield by having a something that can be grazed. And maybe a producer doesn't want to have cows, but maybe they have a neighbor or somebody they know that has livestock that they could be growing cover crops and helping bridge a necessary time for that livestock producer that could come over and graze on that cover crop. There are a lot of drawbacks, and if a producer is running on a tight margin, and they don't have a lot of flexibility, and it is kind of scary. And so I think through the programs that we're trying to offer, we want to help put some buffer in there so that they might be more willing to try something new.
So, if you had to pick the one part about soil health that intrigues you most, what would that be?
There are so many different people that have made quotes on soil, but I think of the one. We know less about the soil beneath us than we do about all the stars in the heavens. And I think it's just so intriguing to recognize that without soil, we have nothing as a society, as a civilization. And there have been past civilizations that have eroded away. And part of what caused them to die was they didn't understand how to manage their soil and their agriculture. And we have an opportunity. We have science. We have the ability to make good policy. And if we can make it so it's an easier thing to do, it's a right thing to do. And right now, I have to be honest with you, there are things, there are barriers in federal policy and crop insurance rates and restrictions that get in the way. And it's not something you just go out and put seeds in the ground and, oh, I got good soil health. It takes a lot of work, and it takes watching what's happening and adjusting along the way.
My next question is why are partnerships so valuable, and what does that look like on a producer level?
Partnerships are so important because there's no one entity, there's no one agency that has all the answers, all the money, all the people. It all the resources that we have at our disposal are limited, and it seems like they get more and more limited as we get more and more people involved. But having partnerships where everybody has a common vision, everybody has something to bring to the table. And if we play it right, and everybody continues to see that vision and work towards that vision, we can each leverage what the other brings. And I think the farmers and ranchers are able to benefit from that. And the conservation partnership that I talked about earlier with NRCS and the conservation districts and the state and other partners, but that's a partnership that's tried and true, and it's been going on for generations, and it evolved and was born out of the Dust Bowl. So I think conservation is best achieved through partnerships and relationships. So I think without that, we would just, there's nothing we could do, especially at the state level. We're limited in funds, and I'm just thankful to especially NRCS. They've been especially helpful with technical assistance and financial assistance to the landowners, but also to this effort. And so if it weren't for partners like NRCS and like the nonprofit groups and the grower groups that are out there, none of this would be happening.
That's amazing. On that same note, you talked about producers. So you have all of these groups working for the farmer, but how can producers create that same network and tap into the resources being as busy as they are?
I'm so glad that you asked that because it kind of made me think of something I hadn't really covered, and that's farmers. Some of the best teaching that goes on is from farmer to farmer, and that's how farmers often find out new ideas, and that's how they find out what's available too. They talk to each other, and creating more ways for farmers to interact, whether it's face to face, whether it's Zoom, whether it's through different social media outlets. Those are ways that I think help farmers because they're busy and they don't have a lot of extra time to sit in meetings. And so finding ways to maximize their time through these different outlets, but especially creating more opportunities for farmers to talk to each other and to mentor one another is I think a way to make the best use of their time. Also, we try to plan meetings. Farmers are busy while the sun's shining. And if we can plan meetings in the evenings, sometimes that is a way to ensure that they can be involved in the discussion and helping to make it better too.
That's really nice. Can you tell us how the Department of Ag is fostering partnerships, especially for soil health initiatives?
That's one of the biggest things that has been most meaningful, in my opinion, is the partnerships that we have been able to draw from and build. For the most part, this is a grassroots effort from the conservation districts, and it started with a resolution that was coming up through the CACD, which is Colorado Association of Conservation Districts, resolution process. And they have been very interested in seeing this through. And I also have to acknowledge the heavy lifting that has been done by the Colorado Collaborative for Healthy Soils. They have launched a very robust, very extensive stakeholder outreach process to gain as much understanding about what people feel the needs are and what is acceptable and unacceptable for a soil health program in Colorado. So those are major partners there. And then also the Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, has been extremely supportive financially and technically to help us get where we are. And we couldn't have done it without the new agreements that NRCS has put in place with the Department of Agriculture. Colorado State University has been an amazing partner in this because of their ability to help guide the science of the soil health program, and with the partnership of the agricultural experiment stations, this is going to be really important when it comes to demonstrating what can be done at that local level. The Lower Arkansas Valley Water Conservancy District has been a major partner in starting it from the beginning, from the conceptual idea. The Lower Ark has had a program in place, and so we could observe what has been going on with the Lower Ark, but it has really helped foster and build what we're doing at a state level as well, for a lot of different ways. The Colorado State Conservation Board is a major partnership in this, and they have told us through their resolution process, one conservation district developed a resolution, and they took it all the way up to the state level, and where all the conservation districts were able to vote, and it came out that they wanted the Department of Agriculture to have a soil health program. So a lot of this is based on the input from the conservation districts, and that is a major partner with the Department of Agriculture too.
What have Colorado producers done really well in regards to soil health?
If you look at a map of the US and see where most of the soil health work is being done, most of it's being done in the Midwest. They have a lot more moisture and a lot more dependable rainfall. And also they have fewer crops that they're producing. They're corn, wheat, and soybeans. And in Colorado, gosh, I couldn't even count how many crops we have. We have dozens and dozens of crops. So lots of different crop scenarios. Some land is irrigated, some is dry land, some is organic, and some is in high mountains, some is in rangeland. I mean, there's just so many different scenarios, and there's no one size fits all like there is more so. I wouldn't say there is that one size fits all in the Midwest either, but they have it easier to implement there. We have a hard job. Where you have irrigation, I think it's a little bit easier to implement soil health practices on some of those irrigated areas. But if you're a dryland farmer and your water comes in rainfall, and you have to do everything possible to stretch that drop of rain as far as you possibly can to make a living off of it. The last thing a lot of those farmers want to do is plant a cover crop that they're not going to be able to harvest. And so it takes a while to find ways that maybe it isn't cover crops that are going to work for them. Maybe it's going to be converting to no-till, or converting from no-till to continuous cropping, finding ways that you can try to stretch out that amount of time where you have living plants on the land. And so I don't really think of soil health practices as being easy to implement in Colorado. I think we have a challenge ahead of us, and that's where it's a mountain to climb to try to make it happen, and not overpromise what is possible through this work. And because in these dryland soils, there's only so much carbon you can put into the soil through these practices. And there are other positive things that happen. Aggregate stability is one. Trying to build that living biome is another. So it's not just about putting carbon in the soil. It's just one of many attributes that we're trying to work on.
You've said so much, Cindy, and we can't thank you enough for all of your wisdom and advice. My last question for you is, where do we go from here?
We need to work as close as we can to provide these resources with farmers and ranchers to help them try new things and build that resiliency into their soils. Mike Collins, who worked for NRCS, and he was passionate about soil health, and he passed away a few years ago. I think that we all work together through the mentoring and the friendship that we got from him, and we work to achieve these goals little by little over time. And as farmers get in the business and get out of the business, there's going to be more opportunity to help some of the next generation who's learning to farm think more about these practices. And like I said, when I was at CSU and I was taking soils classes, we weren't talking about soil health then. Now they have, I think, a whole major on it. And so they've come a long way, and the information that the next generation of farmers is getting is far better than what we got 25 years ago or 50 years ago. It keeps improving. And so I think that through policy, through education, through financial resources, through partnerships, if we can put it all to the best use, we can be successful. Even though I said it's going to be hard, I still think and believe that we can be successful in this.